let's transition. And when there is a team who underachieves, when you have an 8th seed in the Eastern Conference Finals who gets to an NBA Finals, you also have the underdog story on the other side. And I want to talk about the Miami Heat and how impressed I have been with the Miami Heat during this playoff run. So, obviously, the Heat beat the Celtics 103-84, and Eric Spoelstra is now 5-3 in Game 7s. That's the 7th coach in NBA history with 5+ wins in a Game 7. The Heat have 7 undrafted players, most in the postseason for a team to appear in an NBA Finals since 1966 and 67. So, when it comes to the Miami Heat, when you think about the Miami Heat and the run that they are on right now, remember when we first started off the NBA playoffs, the Miami Heat lost the play-in game against Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks. So their season was on the line against the Chicago Bulls. So DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, they had just beat the Toronto Raptors, and this is a battle between the Heat and the Bulls for an opportunity to be the 8th seed and have to play Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks. And the Bulls were beating the Heat by 3 points at one point in the fourth quarter. The Bulls had a lead on the Heat in the fourth quarter of an elimination play-in game. And Jimmy Butler went crazy in the fourth quarter, and the Heat were able to outlast the Bulls. So everyone expected the Heat to get beat by the Bucks. And all season long, the Heat, they didn't play up to expectations. They didn't play up to their standard. They didn't shoot the ball particularly well throughout the regular season. We all know that Jimmy Butler is not a great regular season player. He's a great playoff player, but not a great regular season player. And so the Heat were inconsistent all season long. And so they were able to escape the play-in by beating the Bulls. And in the first round, everybody, including myself, picked Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks to beat the Miami Heat. In Game 1, in the first quarter, that series changed completely because Giannis got injured, but also Tyler Hero got injured. And we know Giannis is one of the top 5 players in the NBA, but let's not undervalue the significance of a Tyler Hero getting injured as well. This is a 20-point per game scorer for the Miami Heat. Very, very important player off the bench for the Miami Heat, who they need. They need Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero breaks his hand in Game 1. And so the Miami Heat, they overcame double-digit deficits in Games 4 and in Games 5 against the Milwaukee Bucks. And yes, Giannis did miss the rest of Game 1. He missed Game 2 and Game 3. But he played in Games 4 and Games 5. And the Bucks had double-digit leads going into the fourth quarter against the Heat. And the Heat were able to come back in both of those games. I think it was Game 4. Jimmy dropped 56 points. Completely outplayed Giannis in the fourth quarter of Game 4. And then in Game 5, I think Jimmy had over 40 in that game. And the Heat overcame a double-digit lead in Game 5 as well. And so people were like, what? What has just happened? The Milwaukee Bucks were shook, and the Miami Heat eliminated the Milwaukee Bucks in 5 games. And it also sent Giannis and Middleton and Mike Budenholzer home, and Mike Budenholzer lost his job. You fast forward to round 2 against the Knicks. I picked the Heat to beat the Knicks in 7 games, but Jimmy Butler got hurt in that series, and the Heat beat the Knicks in Game 1. They almost pulled off an upset in Game 2 without Jimmy Butler. And they beat the Knicks in 6 games. But in that series, Jimmy Butler had actually cooled off. He had actually cooled off. I thought Strus played well. Caleb Martin played pretty well in that series. Bam performed at a high level. And the Heat were just too much for the Knicks. I thought Julius Randle underperformed. He was pathetic in that series. Jalen Brunson was balling for the Knicks. He was playing outstanding. But other than Jalen Brunson, no one else on the Knicks played at a high level, consistent enough to take down the Miami Heat. So we get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Going into the series, no one gave the Miami Heat a chance to beat the Boston Celtics. And I think it was like ESPN. They do these predictions and percentages for the analytics. And the expectations were like 97% of people said that the Celtics were going to win the Eastern Conference Finals. I got the numbers. I'm going to pull it up. Yeah, 97. This is chance to advance to the NBA Finals via ESPN's analytics. 97% for the Boston Celtics, 3% for the Miami Heat. And in that series, going into it, everyone talked about the Celtics. They got Jaylen Brown. They got Jason Tatum. They got Marcus Smart. Miami has Jimmy Butler and a bunch of role players who are undrafted. And I thought to myself, even going into that series, I'm thinking last year, the Miami Heat were a Jimmy Butler 3 away from beating the Boston Celtics in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Remember Game 7 last year down there in South Beach? The Celtics, similar. This was exactly what happened in Game 6 this year. Remember Game 7 down there in South Beach last year in Miami? The Celtics were up at least like 10 on the Heat in the last 5 minutes of the game. And Jimmy Butler started going crazy. And they were the Celtics were up 2. Jimmy comes down on a fast break opportunity. The Heat had numbers. He decides to shoot a perimeter shot. And I thought he let the Celtics off the hook. Shoots a perimeter shot, misses, and Celtics go down. They hit 2 free throws. They escape with I think it was 196 win in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Same thing happened in Game 6 this year. But going into the series, everyone had the Boston Celtics winning the series, including myself. And all the Miami Heat did was steal Games 1 and Games 2 in TD Garden. And in Game 1, the Heat scored 46 points in the third quarter. 46 points in the third quarter. And they beat the Celtics on their home floor in the first 2 games of the Eastern Conference Finals, up 2-0. And so they go back to Miami. They blow the Celtics off the floor and out of the gym in Game 3. And yeah, they did lose Games 4, Games 5, and Game 6. But this Miami Heat basketball team has been impressive, and they are led by Jimmy Butler. In the Eastern Conference Finals, Jimmy Butler, he averaged 25 points per game on 42% shooting from the floor, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. And so when it comes to the best players in the NBA, we hear about Jokic. We hear about Giannis. We hear about Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, Ja Morant, LeBron. But one of the players that we don't really talk much about is Jimmy Butler. And the reason why we don't talk about Jimmy Butler that much is because Jimmy Butler doesn't care about the regular season. Jimmy Butler basically manages himself throughout the regular season, and he knows that when he gets to the playoffs, his team needs him to elevate his game for them to have a chance to win playoff games in playoff series. So Jimmy Butler doesn't really do much during the regular season. You'll never see I'm not going to say never, but I don't think it's going to be many seasons where you're ever going to see Jimmy Butler be in the NBA MVP conversation, because Jimmy Butler doesn't prioritize the regular season. Jimmy Butler cares about the postseason. And so Jimmy Butler in that Bucks series, he outplayed Giannis. Even though Giannis was injured, he outplayed Giannis in the games when Giannis did play. He outplayed him. Now he got injured in the series against the Knicks, but in the series against the Celtics, I don't even think Jimmy Butler played necessarily great, but he played good enough to get the Heat to the NBA Finals. And remember, the Heat got to the NBA Finals in the bubble a few years ago. And the one thing I give Jimmy Butler credit for is out of all the stars in the NBA, Jimmy Butler is the one star who doesn't have another star alongside him. Like Bam to me is inconsistent. I don't think Bam is a consistent number 2 option you can rely on. Steph has Clay. Tatum has Brown. Giannis has Middleton. Now, these players I just named, Middleton and Thompson, lately they haven't really played to their full potential, but we've seen Thompson and Middleton both perform well in the playoffs. We've seen it. Jokic has Jamal Murray. Who does Jimmy Butler have? Who does Jimmy Butler have? He doesn't have a reliable co-star alongside him. And he has the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals for the second time in the last 4 years. If the Miami Heat can figure out a way to get another star down there in Miami, it's going to be trouble for the rest of the Eastern Conference and the NBA. Someone like Damian Lillard, could you imagine Dame with Jimmy Butler? Because I think Dame is the ultimate closer, but Jimmy Butler is a closer as well. Could you imagine Dame down there in Miami? It would be something special. But another player I want to give a lot of credit to, Caleb Martin, was sensational in the Eastern Conference Finals. He averaged 19 points per game on 60% shooting, shot 49% from three-point range, and averaged 6 rebounds in the Eastern Conference Finals. Caleb Martin played great, and he really elevated his game. He really, really did. Remember last year in the conference finals, Caleb Martin didn't play much because the Heat had PJ Tucker. Maybe if Spoelstra went with Caleb Martin last year, maybe the Heat beat the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. But it was PJ Tucker getting a lot of those minutes that Caleb Martin is getting this year. And so Caleb Martin was outstanding. Caleb Martin outplayed Jaylen Brown in the Eastern Conference Finals, ladies and gentlemen. Think about that for a second. Caleb Martin outplayed Jaylen Brown in the Eastern Conference Finals. Crazy. It seems like during the series against the Celtics, every time the Celtics went on a run, Caleb Martin would hit a key shot that would slow down a Celtics run every time in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's why some people believe that Caleb Martin should have been Eastern Conference Finals MVP, not Jimmy Butler. Now, there are 9 voters who vote for the Eastern Conference Finals. And so Jimmy Butler got 5 out of the 9 votes. So Caleb Martin did get 4 out of the 9 votes for Eastern Conference Finals MVP. And if he would have won Eastern Conference Finals MVP, I would have had no issue with it. No issue whatsoever if Caleb Martin would have won Eastern Conference Finals MVP. So he was great for the Miami Heat. Duncan Robinson hit some timely shots. He did miss 2 shots in the game 6 in the fourth quarter that could have really helped Miami beat the Celtics. But Duncan Robinson coming off the bench, because remember, and not only did the Miami Heat lose Tyler Hero on this playoff run, they lost Victor Oladipo. They lost Victor Oladipo in game 3 against the Milwaukee Bucks. And here we are, 4 wins away from an NBA championship. But as great as Jimmy Butler is, and as good as Caleb Martin played in the Eastern Conference Finals, none of this would be possible if they didn't have Eric Spoelstra. Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA. He is going to be coaching in his 6th NBA Finals. Only Pat Riley, Red Auerbach, and Phil Jackson have more NBA Finals appearances. And so this would not be possible if it wasn't for Eric Spoelstra. In the Eastern Conference Finals, an X factor in the Eastern Conference Finals wasn't even a particular player. It was Eric Spoelstra implementing a zone that confused the hell out of the Boston Celtics. I mean, that zone, the Celtics had no answer for the zone. And so Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA. And Steve Kerr, he got Steph Curry. He has Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. Ty Lue, he has Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. Michael Malone has Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray. Darvin Ham got LeBron James, Anthony Davis. Eric Spoelstra has Jimmy Butler and a bunch of undrafted role players. And he has them in the NBA Finals. And they beat Giannis and Middleton in the opening round. They beat Randall and Brunson in the second round. They beat Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum in the Eastern Conference Finals. So Eric Spoelstra, what he's been able to do since he's been the head coach of the Miami Heat is nothing short of sensational. And honestly, it's a shame that Eric Spoelstra has never won an NBA Coach of the Year award. That is a shame. I don't know who the hell voting on NBA Coach of the Year awards, but it is a shame that Eric Spoelstra does not have an NBA Coach of the Year award on his resume, because Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA. He coached circles around Joe Mazzulla in Eastern Conference Finals, circles around him. So I can't say enough about the job that Eric Spoelstra has done leading this Miami Heat basketball team. The culture that they have down there in Miami, it's something that we got to give credit to. And the reason why the Miami Heat are in the NBA Finals is because of that culture. And another thing too, before I move on, the one other thing I want to give the Miami Heat credit for is how they are able to focus being in Miami. All right, think about it for a second. They are in Miami, South Beach, Ocean Drive. And the way that the Miami Heat are able to be a top-notch organization in the NBA, I mean, if I was in Miami and I was a player, it is understandable if you get distracted. Let's just call it what it is. If you're in Miami and you get distracted, it's understandable. I get it. But somehow, some way, Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley, they have their players focused. They have them focused. I don't understand how they do it. I don't understand how they do it year in and year out. They are focused every single year this time of year. And we know how Miami is. Miami is right there with LA, New York, some of the biggest and more popular cities in the United States. And they focused every year, and they have their players in playoff form come April, May, and June. And then another thing too, shout out to my man Udonis Haslem. Udonis Haslem gets another chance to win another NBA championship. Yes, he's no longer playing, but he's the same way the Warriors have Andre Iguodala as a veteran presence in their locker room. That's what the Miami Heat have with Udonis Haslem. I love the fact that UD is going to get another opportunity to win another NBA championship. I really, really do. So shout out to Udonis Haslem, and Kevin Love is playing in another NBA Finals. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with the Miami Heat. But Miami deserves to be here. And honestly, in the Eastern Conference Finals, even though the Celtics came back from 0-3 and forced a Game 7, the Celtics didn't deserve to win the Eastern Conference Finals. The Miami Heat deserves to win the Eastern Conference Finals. They may not have been the most talented team, but they were the better team when it comes to the other teams in the Eastern Conference. So you can talk about all the talent that the Bucks have with Giannis and Middleton, talent that the Celtics have with Brown and Tatum. The one thing that the Miami Heat have is culture, and they are the best team in the Eastern Conference, and they're representing the East in the NBA Finals come Thursday night in Denver.